Hey everyone, it's Flak. Battlefield 5 has been a bit of a baffling roller coaster ride. Players never knew what to expect, but that doesn't mean they didn't have any expectations. The game was sold as the series returning to its roots in a never-before-seen portrayal of World War II. It turns out that phrase has haunted Battlefield 5 since launch, because no one, including the developers, appears to know exactly what it means. Now, I don't mean the developers don't know what World War II looks like. I mean they don't, or didn't, have a clear vision on what they wanted to portray. A common reason I see for criticizing or altogether avoiding Battlefield 5 is that it quote-unquote doesn't feel like World War II. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that phrase, yet it's very difficult to nail down exactly why people feel that way. It's often a combination of factors. Some people say it's the game's lighting and color grading, or the atmosphere. Others pin the blame on lesser-known map locations, or the inclusion of women. But for me, I think it really comes down to Battlefield 5's cosmetics, something that has been made painfully obvious with the game's most recent update. Outfits have been a bit of a flashpoint since the game's reveal trailer and the appearance of the infamous bionic arm. Face paint and goofy haircuts didn't help the situation, but I think many players were under the impression that those outfits were optional. Most assumed you could probably dress up your soldier in a historically accurate way appropriate to the World War II timeframe, if you so chose. When Battlefield 5 released, however, that proved not to be the case. Myself and many others headed to the armory looking for the real stuff, only to be greeted with outfits sort of resembling discount World War II Halloween costumes. Now, I have long supported the idea that there is room in historical games for both accurate uniforms and other more tactical options. The key here being options. Many players of historical games play them specifically for that reason. They're historical. Players want to experience what it was like during a different time, and to get as close to that experience as possible. Many had family that fought in the war, or have their own favorite stories or idols that they want to emulate. As a developer, you need to recognize and facilitate that desire. That's what makes these kinds of games successful. Battlefield 5 never gave players that option, well, until over 18 months after launch. And that is something that is absolutely mind-boggling to me. I even tried to make a video on the most realistic cosmetic combinations in Battlefield 5 months ago, and I actually had to give up because there just wasn't anything there. In most cases, the coats were wrong, helmets were wrong, and the pants and boots were definitely wrong. Even the basic colors on many uniforms were wrong. Most uniforms were also lacking insignia and patches, something incredibly important for distinguishing, say, a battle-hardened grenadier from generic German soldier 001, and nailing down that true World War II feel. Now, maybe there's some kind of legal reason for this. I don't know, people get weird about the swastika, but other games, and even Call of Duty World War II, managed to do a better job. I'm not saying DICE wasn't on the right track at some point. Concept art for the game shows there were some great compromises between historical accuracy and that tactical aesthetic. Even the game's single-player war stories had some believable uniforms. But what wound up in the game's multiplayer initially looked like someone asked the question, how much stuff can I stick on a person? Many pieces of kit weren't appropriate for the faction, and there was just too much of it. This approach undoubtedly impacted the believability of the game's setting and chipped away at realism. After all, uniforms are intended to be exactly that, uniform. In this manner, Battlefield 5's approach to cosmetics also crippled its approach to atmosphere. I would much rather have seen an approach that reflected the nature of combat. I should have given players realistic uniforms at launch and then released more tactical or non-traditional outfits as the game's life progressed. This would have been appropriate. You go from the FNG to a grizzled veteran, and your appearance could, of course, reflect that. Instead, we got the exact opposite. The irony of all this, of course, is that Battlefield 5 is finally getting the cosmetics players wanted after the end of all future content was announced. While I am incredibly appreciative that DICE is adding historically accurate uniforms, and they even rework some of the colors of existing uniforms to make them more realistic, it pains me to ask the question of what would have happened to Battlefield 5 if they had taken this approach from the beginning. And truthfully, I think the answer can be seen on social media like Twitter and Reddit. The response to the new cosmetics and the tweaks to older ones has been resoundingly positive. Some players are even trying to get a petition going to save the game. Back on topic, in many cases, the phrase "give the people what they want" is overused. But here, I think it's entirely appropriate, and it stands in stark contrast to EA's original "if you don't like it, don't buy it" approach to Battlefield 5. Battlefield's fan base reacted strongly to Battlefield 5's reveal, told developers what they wanted, and they were largely ignored. Now, imagine if EA had listened early on and Battlefield 5 rolled out with cosmetics that were historically accurate, plus maybe a couple tactical options. Will we still be in the same place we are today, burying Battlefield 5 and hoping the next game can redeem the franchise? I don't think so, but I'm curious to hear what you think. Do you think a 180 on the game's approach to cosmetics early on would have saved Battlefield 5, or are there just too many factors to overcome? Tell me below in the comments. Also, if you do happen to want to sign that petition to save the game, I'll put a link to it in the video description. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If not, a dislike, and make sure to subscribe and hit that bell to get updates on the latest Battlefield news. As always, thanks for watching.